Welcome to On Par with Maury Povich. I've known Lewis Black for a very long time. Lewis, as most people know, is loud. He's brilliant. He somehow manages to make rage hilarious. And in this episode, the two of us are going to sit down and talk about comedy and friendship and why yelling into the void might just be the most honest thing you can do. This is On Par with Maury Povich. There you go. Is that a proper intro?
That's a great intro. I wonder who wrote it for you. Did
No,
Connie write it?
No, Connie didn't write this. Meanwhile, truth be known, Lewis thinks more of Connie than he does of me. He's not the only person to be that way.
That's because I've known your entire career.
Yes.
So I mean, I followed you for a long time, even though Connie is also from the same area.
Yes.
I followed you so I could actually torture you
Of
easily.
course. And by the way, I'm easily torturable.
I know you are. Well, the other thing is you seem to enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, it's better than the other way.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I guess that means that everybody should know that Lewis and Connie and I are all from the Washington, D.C. area. Mm-hmm. In fact, Lewis was born in Silver Spring, Maryland, and I was born in Silver Spring, Maryland.
You were born in Silver Spring?
The Falkland Apartments,
No
right across the line at Colesville and 16th Street.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow. The Falklands.
Yeah, exactly. Now, for everyone knows Lewis as a spectacular comedian. I don't know if many people know you as a playwright. And the most amazing thing is, I think you're a playwright at heart.
I am, kind of. I mean, it's really what I...
Did it help you with your comedy or not?
I think it did. I think it taught me... it was easier for me to tell a story on stage by myself so I could just tell it, as opposed to the idea of putting a group of characters together and telling the story that way. I never had like a great playwriting teacher,
Even though you went to the Yale Drama School as a playwright student?
Yeah. Here's one for the books. They at both at UNC where I studied it and at Yale, at no point during any course of playwriting was I taught plot.
Really?
Yeah. Can you imagine?
What, just character?
Yeah, nothing. I mean, kind of like, that's good. That'll work. That's nice. Good typing. Well, you were able to mimeo that well. That's how long ago I started, so it was, boy, you can really mimeograph a play well. I mean, they just didn't. We would discuss.
So you had to do it on your own. You just had to
pretty much
trial and error on your own.
Yeah, I mean, and there, you kind of started to figure it out a bit.
But do I ever see in my lifetime on Broadway playwright Lewis Black?
We came close. We got to the Mark Lindbaker, who was
a great actor.
Yeah, a great actor was and Joe Grafazzi directed a play of mine that was done, 10 years ago now, with the George Street Theater out in New Brunswick. That's
Jersey.
As close as we got.
You got to New Brunswick.
We got
to Rutgers.
We got to Rutgers. We got 45 minutes out, and we could not get any producer to come out and see the show. And Mark had this unbelievable review. They actually wrote about Mark that, that he deserved the Tony for that year for his performance, and the only reason he didn't get it was because he was out in New Brunswick. But it was unbelievable. That's as close as we got.
All right. Now,
I got to play a lot of AAA ball, so it was done in
exactly.
regional theaters.
Now, as I understand it, as a young playwright, you started to do stand-up on the side.
Yeah.
Well, why? I mean,
it was a way. I was fascinated by it.
You were always fascinated with stand-up?
Yeah, I would watch the.
Who were you watching? Who did you?
Everybody. The Ed Sullivan Show is where I started. So I started watching that, and I was always, you'd have somebody come out and sing some shit, and then somebody do some other thing in a dog act, and Topo Gigio. He'd find these acts. It was a variety show.
Right.
It was the end of vaudeville. on television, and he would bring, but he'd always have a comic. And they were always kind of, I was just fascinated. They were all different, and they were all unusual, and they were all fun.
These are the days of Henny Youngman and all that.
Yeah, Henny Youngman, Jackie Mason, there was Jackie Vernon. I could list all of these guys that were doing this stuff, and I was just kind of intrigued by the whole process, that they would laugh.
When did you realize you were funny?
I kind of knew, because my friends were funny, and so I could make them laugh. And then, but in classrooms, when it would start to get kind of like either dull or...
You were doing this in high school?
Not sitting in my seat. I didn't get up. No, this was, but it's when I realized it. I would basically, it would be the point there'd be tension in the room, and I would know how to make it. I could make something funny happen. I could say something funny.
But you weren't saying "fuck you."
No, I was being a charming little.
When was the first time you said "fuck you" on stage?
Well, the first time I really started to get up on stage, when I first got up on stage, first time I ever did it. Because I did a show that kind of was, eventually I realized was the hook, but it took a long time. We had a talent show that we did in our high school. And it's always done the same year, some sort of a memory play and a couple of older sisters in their closet looking through things, and then they'd come up with an act and then another act. And we decided to do it, me and my friends, in 2 days figured out, no, we're not going to do this shit anymore. What we're going to do is that I'll play a talent, I'll play an agent. These kids will have to come in and audition for me. Some of the guys that I would be agents of these acts. And then the act would do their stuff, and I'd go, that's awful. That is just awful. And then the audience would go, wow. It was like, wow.
So that's when you realized the negative got a reaction.
I didn't realize any of that until later on. I knew that sarcasm was key to it, because my mother was about as sarcastic as they came.
Yeah. We ought to say right now, interrupt right now, that Lewis's parents, Sam and Jeanette, died at 104 for Jeanette and 101 for Sam.
Yeah.
And your friend Willie Reale did the actuary. There are only 5 Americans living with parents who were over 100.
Is that right?
5. You were one of 5.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that? One of 5.
Well, they said, the thing that I also discovered is that the odds of having both parents live over that age was the same odds as winning the Powerball.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
you actually want? How did it feel?
Well, I felt like maybe from time. I know this is wrong, but maybe it would have been nice to have won the Powerball.
Right. Exactly. But you complained about your mother all the time. She couldn't cook.
No, she couldn't.
You never had Thanksgiving at home because she couldn't make a turkey.
Yeah. No, me and my friend Neil Mazzella, who builds all the sets here. Builds a ton
in New York,
in New York.
Broadway.
He's been doing that forever. And he and I went to eat at his mother's 100 years ago, and he'd eaten at my mother's place maybe once, and he knew what my mother could do, and he'd always yelled about that there should have been a competition between the two of them. So we went out to have Thanksgiving dinner with his mom, and we got there, and the one thing that was kind of good was they had a pepperoni roll,
right,
from the Italian place down the street, and she burnt it, and it was like the only thing that was there. I don't remember the turkey was dry. It was, and God bless her, but it was awful. And she really did give my mother a run. And we got in the car and we're heading back to New York and said, we're not doing this anymore. We're going to go on a trip every Thanksgiving. So to basically make sure that we had a vacation and to get a good meal.
Yeah, and you wrote in, I'm dreaming of a black Christmas. You went to Costa Rica.
Yes.
For Thanksgiving.
For Thanksgiving, yeah. We went to Costa Rica. We've been everywhere. We'd been in Buenos Aires.
And your mother wasn't offended?
No. She never thought the idea of coming home for any of those holidays made any sense. It was like, oh boy, what a pain in the neck. come on an off weekend.
Right. And by the way, your father became a mechanical engineer.
Yeah.
But the way he did it, to me, is remarkable. You're living in, I don't know where they were, probably living in New York at the time.
They were living in New York. My father was living in the East Village.
And he ends up at the University of Oklahoma.
Yeah.
For what reason?
This is really, it's a great story. I asked him once, because, seriously, Oklahoma had just become a state. And I said, how did you end up going there? And he said, I wanted to find a school because he was an only child, and he was, and his father had passed away when he was 1. So it was just him and his mom, and cousins and stuff. And he said I needed to go somewhere that was as far away as my mother, as I could get from my mother, and still be in the United States. I thought, wow, that's just, and it was one of those things that within us, because he didn't talk a lot, but he would say these things, and you go, the whole picture would open up. Right. The relationship with his mother, the fact that he would go that far. He ended up living with I don't know if it was, I forget what, it was a Cherokee or a Navajo. I forget
it was a Native American.
A Native American and his wife. He lived with them for 4 years and stayed in contact with them. It's unbelievable. And was the guy who drove, Oklahoma was a dry state. So he was the guy who would drive to Texas to get the liquor.
Boomer Sooner.
And Boomer Sooner, yeah. And I became an avid Oklahoma fan.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, and I was traumatized when Oklahoma had won 42 games in a row or something.
That's right. Bud Wilkinson.
Bud Wilkinson, yeah, son of a bitch. And so I'm watching the game where Notre Dame broke their winning streak. They beat them 7-0. I was heartbroken. My was raging.
Living in Silver Spring, Maryland.
Heartbroken. And he would get a newsletter. The Bud Wilkinson sent out a newsletter every week. People wonder, about the finances of these programs. That they had enough money back then in the literally the 50s and the early 60s to send Bud Wilkinson's newsletter out.
So in the book, I Dream of a Black Christmas, you mentioned somebody who I have never heard you talk about, and it's your brother.
Yeah.
Why? First of all, why mention him at the point? And you mentioned him because it was Christmas, and he was living in France.
Yeah.
And he was a wine aficionado.
Yeah.
And because that's what you did on Christmas.
Yeah.
You thought of your brother, your late brother.
Well, I'd also written about him. I wrote Nothing Sacred, and I wrote a lot about him there. Because he was, I was thinking about it when I was walking over that
your brother died very early.
Yeah,
to me is amazing. Talking about your parents and now talking about your brother.
Well, it was crazy because my brother dies in his 40s, and my parents lived that long. It made no sense except that when they and my mother wouldn't do an autopsy, which was like, just do it, okay? Not for you. I'm not going to have them. Well, I need it. But there's information there. She was a scientist, for God's sake. So, but what they did when I was talking to the doctors, they said that why he had could have been lung cancer or it might have been lymphoma, but they couldn't have read they didn't read the lung problem early enough because he had scratches on those on the X-rays that were essentially caused by something that he had as a kid. Yeah,
but you still think of him.
I think of him all the time. Yeah,
and this is like 40 years ago.
Yeah, and so do my friends, all of those guys, because he was really kind of an integral part of our group. He was one of those people he's the guy who would organize a bowling league. Who's doing that? The rest of us, it would take years. He would go, here's what's going to happen. We're going to meet on Tuesdays. Yeah. We're going to have a trophy. We had an entire, you'd pick, we had a pick league for football. And he organized it. He'd send out sheets every week. He would write all the taunts. It was like unbelievable.
You're about to do something that I've done. and that is you're going to end touring for
Yeah.
the first time in, 30 years?
35 years, yeah.
You used to do 100 dates a year.
Yeah, I'd go up to 150, 200. I would be working sometime. When it started to, I was so excited to be working and getting a paycheck. And I was enjoying it so much that I would go work literally as much as possible. So it could even be up to 200 nights.
So
initially.
you're not thinking about the void?
No. I really want to.
I mean, is it like me? My show ended when it should have ended.
Yeah, that's what I feel. My show would have ended. My tour would have ended if it weren't for the pandemic. Just probably when I was about 3 or 4 years ago. I'd already seen. This is to me. What did I learn from the pandemic? One of the things is that we're fucking nuts. The other thing is that it took. That the pandemic itself had I had a 5-year plan, and I'd never had a 5-year plan.
You sound like the Soviets.
Yeah,
A
exactly.
new 5-year plan.
I had a 5-year plan, and I was going to wrap up with 2 specials, tour for those 4 years, and then be done. So it was 5 years, and then the pandemic hit, and all of that went out the window. And what did I learn? I learned you don't make a 5-year plan. I always thought it was stupid when you were having an interview, and they'd say, well, what do you see yourself doing in 5 years? What the fuck is the matter with you?
Right.
I hope I make it to Thursday, jackass.
Right. But the pandemic, I've heard you talk about this,
Yeah.
and it's in your act. It's the first time you really felt depressed.
Yeah. It's the first time I felt anxiety. Yeah.
Anxiety and
Depression. Never had it.
Never had it.
No.
As a comic, I thought all comics were depressed. I thought, there's a black, dark side to all these comics.
Nah, mine was a desperate need for cash. I had never made money as a playwright. It was in part finally. I loved what I was doing, but we were losing the place, the West Bank, which is literally
Around the corner
from here. We lost it because the guys who were running the place is Steve Olson, who
Right.
who ran the place forever, and he owned it for a while. He said that he called his partners originally, and he was the manager. He called them null and void, and they ended up thinking that we were doing a theater in the basement, and he thought we were making a fortune. So he basically threw us all out, and they were going to take it over. And so I really kind of turned the corner. People were coming in and saying, like Catch a Rising Star, which was still in New York at that time, come over and start working over here. So I started at Catch and then started moving around, and then it was really taking what I was doing at the West Bank and kind of converting it to a stand-up stage.
And you say that basically Comedy Central really sent you to the moon.
Yeah, Comedy Central, Conan, but it was really Comedy Central that was, it was doing the Daily Show, and it was also I did before that even hit. I had done one special, and then I did like I did 2 specials before, and everybody did one.
Right.
So
Very successful, by the way.
Yeah.
On HBO.
well, no, those
Showtime.
came later.
Oh, that old.
Yeah, these were the first 5 or 6 I did were half-hour specials.
At Comedy Central.
Yeah.
Is anybody going to say the reason why Lewis is leaving is that politics in this country is so crazy? Lewis is so tired of talking about it.
I'm sure people, yeah. I mean, I even think that. I mean, that.
I always thought of you as like, you were one of these guys where it was a pox on both their houses.
Yeah.
You just took on both of them.
Yeah.
Democrats and Republicans. You didn't favor either one. Now it's kind of on a tilt, isn't it?
It's on a minor tilt because the other people who are supposed to protect us from this kind of insanity, they're like, it's like somebody clipped the wings of geese. I mean, what are they? They're kind of wandering around.
Democrats.
The Democrats. I mean, it's like the last joke that I have about, and there may be more, but I doubt it. It was always about the the Republicans and the Democrats. The Republicans are this, the Democrats are that. The Republicans say, and you can switch it around. The Republicans say, I got a really bad idea. And then the Democrats go, and I'm going to make it worse. It's those kind of stupid jokes. And the newest one is Dumb and Dumber. So pick a party. It's Dumb and Dumber. I don't care. Either way, you lose.
Yeah.
All right? And I just think we've gotten to a point with it that I have always seen myself that my act is about being more insane than what we're seeing. So I have to be crazier than.
Right.
That's the yelling comes from that. All of that comes from, I'm nuts, I'm nuttier than anybody in the room, don't screw around with me, I'm crazy. But I can't, this has stretched my imagination. The rubber band is broken.
So unbeknownst to me, on my 70th birthday,
Oh, yeah.
my wife has a surprise party for me. And all of a sudden we're there, and in walks the entertainment, Lewis Black. And Lewis's first words were, "How far have I fallen?" I'm used to playing Carnegie Hall, and I'm playing Povich's birthday party.
It was really,
And you wouldn't get paid. You didn't want to get paid.
I wasn't going to get paid. No, I was honored.
So among the guests at the dinner was my golf coach, Peter Costas. And so my friend Peter Costas is there, and I knew that Lewis was kind of a degenerate, addictive golfer. Not great, just addictive.
Exactly.
And my wife stands up and says, since you won't get paid, Lewis, we are going to give you Peter Costas as a teacher for life.
Yes.
And you say it's the best gift you ever got.
It is the best gift I've ever gotten. I wish I'd done your 60th, but I didn't know you then. And you would come, at that point I knew you because you would come, and that's where you met my folks.
Sure. I
You
met
would
your
come
folks
down
at
to the Borgata.
Your folks, by the way, would come to the theater.
Yeah.
They would travel with you.
Yeah. They would go and
And by the way, they were in their probably late 80s, 90s by then.
Yeah. They were like, look, they would go when I would go. I had an 7 days I would work at the MGM Grand, which Carlin worked there. So I kind of followed. He was there. I said, okay, I'm going to follow him in there. I'm going to do 7 days at the MGM. And it was crazy. And he left for reasons that I began to understand because the theater is not built in a way that allows you to hear the laugh.
Oh, wow.
The full laugh. So you're constantly feeling like you're underwater. But what they did do was give my parents a lot of coupons and put them up in a really nice room. And so for 7 days, they would come out. They must have been in truly their late 80s at that point, and they loved it. It was like 4 times a year. They would come out, spend 7 days there. Now, by the end of it, I'm exhausted, and I've got to get out of there. My parents are going, oh, I can't believe it's come to an end. And then I have to get out of there. I said, I can't do this anymore. And my mother goes, oh, come on. What do you mean? You're going to come in here and do 2 days? It's not worth it for us. Right. So, and they did the same thing. I was at the one in Mohegan Sun. So I used to play. They had a really great, club, kind of a cabaret.
Oh,
4 or 5.
Like the old kind.
Yeah, 400 or 500 seats, right. Well done, nicely appointed. A good place to do comedy. And that's what I would work, and I would be working there 5 nights a week. And they loved that because I would do the show, and then we'd go eat at a really great Italian restaurant there, and they just thought this was great. And then they switched me to play for
the big room?
To the big room, to like where they played basketball. They switched me to that. And my mother goes, I can't believe you're giving up that room. What is the matter with you?
You mentioned something that you said, I couldn't hear the laughs. How important is that?
It's huge because it's what carries you. It's that energy. Because doing an hour and a half or hour and 15 of comedy is it's like running a mile or so. It's the way I do it, idiot. Next time I'm doing it on a gurney with an IV drip, but this time, for even any comic, it's a haul. And if you don't get that energy going, and that it's really like it's like surfing. That it's the wave that carries you.
Is Carnegie Hall good? Because I hear the acoustics are good.
No,
it's not.
not for. It's
Comedy?
the most complaints. Here, there's Carnegie. The most complaints I ever had for sound of all the rooms I played.
Amazing.
Because it's not built for the spoken word. It's built for
the
music.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
Because people at the back were like, "Go fuck yourself. I'm out of here."
What's the largest place you've played that had good acoustics?
Well, it was the Mohegan Sun did, but that was really good. But that's a different kind of a thing, and they had big screens and the whole hoo-ha. Probably, what do you call it? The Bass Center in Houston. They've got like their Carnegie Hall. It's in Fort Worth, and it is. They have baffles, these things in the ceiling. So whatever music they have, or whatever, if it's spoken word, they switch the tilt of it, and it's crystal clear. The other is the Warner in Washington. Phenomenal.
The old Warner Theater.
The old Warner Theater.
Downtown.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, why do you like golf so much?
The hook was when I was bar mitzvahed. That was until I went on the road. The last good payday I ever had
was your bar mitzvah.
My bar mitzvah.
The envelopes.
Yeah, the envelopes. It was a good one, and my parents kept a low overhead. So my uncle he played golf, and he had these Wilson clubs.
Sure.
And he gave them to me. And across the street from where we lived was NOL, the Naval Ordnance Lab.
Sure.
And
they had a golf course.
It had a 9-hole golf course.
Right. It's the old Bethesda Naval Hospital.
Yeah, and I went on that golf course. I started playing there by myself, and it was like the one place I could, outside of the bathroom, where I could escape everybody.
I think I had the same feeling the first time I played.
Is that right? Yeah, I just felt great. I mean, and it didn't matter. It was like kind of like I was learning something. I never had a teacher. That's why the Costas thing was huge.
Right. What's the most ridiculous thing you've ever seen on a course? Anything? Maybe the fact that you made a hole-in-one or something?
I did make a hole-in-one, but I didn't see it.
You didn't?
No, I literally, I hit it, and it was 155 yards. I hit an 8-iron.
Right.
And it hit the edge of the green. It was in a dirt track in Austin, and it hit the green and rolled in, and everybody around me was going nuts, and I could not see the ball drop in.
Now, I've seen you on the course, and as far as I'm concerned, it's just an extension of your act, because there are more fuck yous and fuck this and fuck that and fuck this. I mean, you don't quit on the course with that.
I've calmed down a little, but except you just played with me, so you know I didn't calm down that much.
Exactly.
but I tried to.
Yeah, which, by the way, I think we won one.
We did win.
Well, because we had Costas on the.
Well, yeah, but Mark and I didn't drag us into the
No,
pit.
you were played well.
Yeah, you had to use four of our scores, and we actually marked part 2 and I part 2.
Yeah, okay. Now,
but people were yelling about it, but fuck them.
So you were. I read in your book, and I'm Dreaming of a Black Christmas, and you talked about your bar mitzvah. And you were astonished. One of your most amazing, maybe it's the 9th wonder of the world, is Philens Basement in Boston, Massachusetts, at the Philens department store. I'll tell you my experience. You tell me yours.
One of the things that my mother spent a lot of time doing was putting clothes on me that were called. They were the cheapest clothes, and they were called irregulars. And so these clothes were like awful. I would have like the crotch on my jeans. So, it would be, let's say those are my legs, and the crotch is here. And my mother would buy jeans where the crotch was down there. And I'd go, what is with you? I can't be wearing those. And she said, and this was her thing. Well, they're a little cheaper, but you have to realize also for you have a really big crotch. I went, what is the matter with you? And what mother says that? And so I discovered Philens, and I can't remember who led me to it.
Well, you must have been on tour or something.
Well, I knew that I was in Boston, and I discovered it there, and it was at the, I was playing Catch a Rising Star, a really great comedy club, and really I consider formative to my my professional career, because I saw great comics there. But somebody there, or maybe even Kathleen Madigan, said, you got to go down. Philens Basement, you're not going to believe the clothes there. And it was like unbelievable. And it was like 4 kinds of color-coded things, that the things would drop, people wouldn't buy them. And they weren't irregular. They were like real clothes that cost less than what my mother was paying for junk.
That's why they called it the basement.
The basement. And it was packed, and people, and I would see, it was that thing. You would actually see people, grabbing something and hiding from everybody inside, like the dresses,
right,
and putting the dresses on inside the rack so that nobody else could get them, and to see if they would fit, so that they didn't get. It was like unbelievable. And so I could go there. I could get socks. I could get everything, all the needs, all of my professional needs.
At Philens Basement.
At Philens Basement, and I needed sport coats because I dressed. The whole thing for me was. It wasn't just about yelling. I could yell all I want as long as I was the nicest dressed person in the room.
So now it's bar mitzvah time for me. My father's on the road covering the Washington Senators. And he comes home when I'm about to be bar mitzvahed, my first suit, who wore a suit before they were bar mitzvahed. I got this suit for you at Philens Basement. Jacket and 2 pair of pants. You can't beat it. $50.
Really,
2 pair of pants.
2 pair.
I said to myself, when could I ever wear the second pair? I'm only going to wear the first for the bar mitzvah. I could be 10 years, never wear the second pair of pants. Philens Basement.
Philens, and that he told you the price.
Yeah.
That's funny. That makes my day. Because all I knew was your father was the articles that he wrote in the Post.
Yeah, and he was a very dapper guy.
Yeah.
He wore a coat and tie and a fedora through every. I mean, I never saw him at a ball game without a fedora, a coat, and a tie and a button-down shirt.
Wow.
Never in his life.
Is that because he felt like he was going to work? Or?
No, he said that's the way you should dress.
Wow.
You know, he used to get pissed at me if I ever walked on a plane without a jacket.
No kidding.
Yeah, he would just go nuts. I mean, what kind of a kid are you? I mean, how dare you go on? You have to, what kind of sense of values do you have? I mean, that's what he would do. I mean, it was just ridiculous. Now, you've been a great supporter of mental health. In fact, the Love You Project, which we just had, and you are so generous with your support of the Love You Project, which is about mental health in the workplace.
Yes.
Do you think about yourself when it comes to mental health or not? And do you think that, boy, if I stop touring for 150 days, is this going to start playing with me?
I don't think it will. I think actually it's a great, because now I can go back and write. And if I go back and write, which I couldn't do during the pandemic, because seriously, this is my life in the pandemic. I'd start to write something or read something, and I'd get about a paragraph in and go, and I'm going to die. And so I never got through that. Now I feel like I can sit there and be inside my head and do the thing that I started out doing, which is to be able to. I wanted to write.
Are you going to write plays again?
I'm going to write a play. I think I'm going to write a play. I've got a couple of things that I've started.
You already have dates in New Brunswick?
No. I'll have to. No, but I'm going to have to suck up to somebody or blow somebody.
Which, by the way, I should say, I don't know a person who has more best friends than you. I mean, it's amazing. I've met all of your friends, and each of them thinks they're the best.
Yeah, I know.
They're the best.
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah,
that's very important to you, isn't it, friends?
Yeah. Well, because my family, my mother, I just went to the memorial of a cousin of mine, and my parents left New York in the 40s when they got married and moved to Washington because they wanted to get away from the family. And they didn't want to be in New York with the family. And it was huge to them. And so it was always about, from their point of view, that you collect a family, you know? And so before...
outside the blood.
Yeah. That, you know, before we got to where we are now with these, you know, where people now kind of see the extended family, and those people could be somebody who's like a close friend, that's what my parents saw. And my mother said toward the end, she was up, I forget where the hell we were with a bunch of my friends, and said, "You have to take care of him now. It's your job."
Is that what she said? She said to your friends?
To my friends, that you're the family.
Yeah, I'm not taking care of
I'm
him.
not this, I'm done.
What was your favorite part of the Goodbye Yellow Brick Road tour? And how long ago was that?
It's still going. I've still got I've got a date in North Carolina coming up, and 5 or 6 at the end of August. I end up in Los Angeles.
Now, does your audience know that they're on the final trip?
Yeah, it's kind of they've been told enough.
And do they react?
Yeah, it's been kind of remarkable. They've been much. There's been kind of a outpouring of my appreciation of them and their.
And are you getting people? I've been watching you. I've been here every year that you came.
Yeah, I mean, there are people who are like, you know, I've waited to see you 100 for. This is the first time I get to see. It goes from this is really it. I'm glad I knew that this was the end because I kept putting you off, and now I'm really glad I got to see you. And there are the others who are, you know, I don't know what I'm going to do without you. And I go, well, I'm going to be doing the Randcast, you know, and I'll be wandering around. I still will do
stuff
like 8 dates a year or something, and I'll do live Randcasts. So I'll do that in the theater. But I'm not going to try to make this shit make sense anymore.
Yeah, I got the feeling it was time.
Yeah.
Huh? As soon as this next election happened.
Yeah.
That was about time.
Yeah.
What's going to happen to the bus? You've been living on this bus.
I still have the bus. So I'm going to...
He tours on this bus.
Yeah.
Now, it's, you know, let's get this straight. It's not, you know, that huge bus, you know, that big musical acts have. Yeah. It's Lewis's bus.
Yeah. I call it a socialist
How
bus.
many can sleep? 1, 2?
No, it can sleep 6.
Oh, 6. Okay.
Yeah, but it's like 3 stacked up and 3 stacked up.
Oh, great.
Yeah,
That's
so
terrific.
it's really only...
And Jeff Stilson is on that bus?
Stilson is on that bus.
That's your opening act?
Yeah.
Long time opening act.
Yeah, he's been it, and then John Bowman before him,
Right.
and then my tour manager, Ben Brewer, and the guy who's ever selling merch, it's Jason now. One of my friend's kids, Zeke sold stuff.
So what are you going to do to the bus? You're going to keep the bus?
I'm going to keep it for a year and see. If I use it, great. If I don't, because now it's like, well, now I could actually, you know, I was always great to have the bus, but now it's like I could do shit that's fun. So if I called you up and said, you know, where do you want to go down and play the Alabama Golf Trail? We'll have the bus.
I'm sleeping 3 decks. I'm on a 3-decker.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
But I'll give you the bottom deck.
Okay.
I'll give you the back room if you can have the king's room. I don't give a shit.
I'll tell you one time you're going to use the bus. You're going to use it in July to go up to the National Comedy Center.
Yes.
Because not only you, I don't know if you founded it or you one of the founders, but you're a major cog in that.
Well, I mean, I feel like I've been able to be a small part of what's occurred. I think it's just finally getting the word out because it opened during the pandemic and it had unbelievable.
Chautauqua, New York.
It's actually in Jamestown, and down the street is Chautauqua, the lake and the little village there that is dedicated to.
Well, that's about as far up in New York as you can get.
It is without getting a nosebleed. It's really up there. It's literally between Buffalo, and it's equidistant from Buffalo and Cleveland.
And
it's cold.
So are you
in the winter?
In July?
No,
Not
in
July.
the winter.
I bet it's pretty in
Oh,
July.
it's gorgeous. It's absolutely. But, you know, it's like who the hell lives in a place where it's nice for 10 weeks? You got to be out of your fucking mind.
Now, you're going to bring some comics up there.
I'm going to bring, actually, what I'm doing is Chautauqua had asked me to put together curate a week of comedy. The first day I'll have the first morning will be Kelsey Mann and Peter Doctor. Well, Peter directed Inside Out 1. Kelsey directed Inside Out 2.
Which you star in.
Yeah,
great character he plays. Anger. I mean, really, not far from the tree, right?
No,
Anger.
So I have the two of them that will. I'll discuss. I'll be the one talking to them and discussing, because I don't think I don't know how much they've talked about it together in front of folks, and I'm very excited about that. And I've got 4 of the Daily Show coming up.
Oh, good.
The producers and writers to give them a sense of how we go from the news to a commentary, or how we deal with the day's events. Then I have Brooke Adam and Tony Shalhoub.
Oh.
Talking about, I said, you talk about whatever you want to talk about. They are 2 of the funniest people I know together.
Tony Shalhoub, I mean, we don't see him as a funny guy.
But he was great on...
He's an actor.
But he's on Mrs. Maisel. And
I know.
And it's all about, it's about comedy. So it's about, to me, it's about how does a couple work together, be funny, who are the couples they liked, what is the secret of that kind of dynamic as opposed to the solo dynamic, right. and especially within of a relationship. Because you and Connie are funny together.
Yeah, but she's funny.
You are funny.
I'm a straight guy.
Oh, well, Joe would say that's actually the tougher role.
Who are the comics that you want to go see these days?
Well, I always like my friend Kathleen Madigan is doing
Kathleen is a dear.
Yeah.
I mean, one of your dearest.
Yeah. I love Dave Attell. Gaffigan is funny. There's a guy named Ted Alejandro that I worked with who I think is really they've not found him. He's terrific. To me, like Kathleen. Kathleen is probably one of the great comics working by far. And they just have not, they don't.
Didn't you start her?
No, she kind of, in a lot of ways, she was already rolling.
Before you?
Yeah. She was, yeah.
I thought it was the other way around.
And then we worked together. I was headlining at that point, and she was, I'd been doing it in New York, but I started on the road. She'd already been on the road for a year and a half, 2 years.
Wow. We're going to do something now. We're going to have the 19th hole. And we're going to do it now. We're going to putt. You and I are going to go putt.
Great.
All right. Okay.
What's the? Do we make money on this?
I'm spending enough money, making this podcast.
And how many are you into in this podcast?
I'd say you were about the 10th or 11th.
Really, I couldn't have been first. Who was first?
You were on the road.
Who was first?
Huh?
Who was first?
Connie.
Good. All right. That's good.
All right.
I was hoping.
All right. Here we go. It's the 19th hole.
Okay.
You're going to ask me questions, and we're going to putt.
Okay.
Okay, so Louis,
Yeah.
in the old days, with you living in this area,
It was the Westies.
Yeah.
Do you remember the Westies?
Oh, I don't, but Steve really does, because they came in and said, you're putting a cigarette machine in here.
yeah, we'll tell you what to do.
Yeah.
They were the Irish mob on the
Yeah.
west side of New York. And here we are.
And here we are now,
Okay.
top of the world.
We're going to putt.
Okay.
That's for you. I'll take this one. You step up. It doesn't matter which hole.
Well,
Anything you want. Oh my golly. What? Come on back. Almost.
Almost.
All right. You got a question for me?
yeah, I do.
What's that?
If you hadn't ended up in broadcasting, in the career that you've chosen,
Yeah,
which is being a bullshit artist,
of course.
what would you have? What was second on the list?
There was no second.
Is that
I
right?
had nothing. I had nothing. This was the only thing I ever wanted to do. I think initially I wanted to be a sports reporter, but then I got tired because the coach at the Washington Redskins, after I asked him a stupid little question, he said, "Are you with us or against us?" I got out of sports.
Which coach?
George Allen.
That's what I thought. What a prick.
He was a prick.
He
All right,
really
I don't know what I'm doing.
You had nothing else?
Nothing. Look, it took me 5 years in the summer just to get through the University of Pennsylvania. They kicked me out once.
No.
Oh, yeah. I was a...
Well, what'd you tell him? I'm majoring in sports broadcasting?
Oh, my golly.
That was good, though.
It didn't
But
work.
sad.
Okay, go ahead. You're the next one. Hit the next one.
But
My
we're
God.
hitting them pretty well.
Yeah, pretty good. I thought yours was going to be in.
That one in the middle is tough. I tried that.
You tried that one?
But
All
I'm
right,
going to do it
doesn't matter.
again.
And he's still an addictive golfer.
Yeah. Mine has only one thing.
Oh, my God.
No, that was awful.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't that bad.
Yeah, that's
You got
fine.
another question?
Uh,
I had absolutely nothing in my life if this didn't work out.
what? Now, how long did you, and this is really for the audience, I kind of know, but how long did you pursue Connie?
Well, we dated over 7 years.
No.
Not exclusively. She was dating all these Hollywood movie stars.
Yeah.
And I was dating, according to her, people whose first names I can't remember. That's according to her. But it was one of those things, when she finally decided, because I asked her one time to get married and she said, "I don't want to, I'm not ready." And then she asked me and I said, "I'm not ready." And then finally she calls me up and she says, "We can get married." And I said, "Why?" She says, "Because I found a dress." I found a dress.
That's perfect.
And then we got married 6 weeks later.
Is that right?
Yeah.
6 weeks? And did you, God, wow.
That was it. We got engaged in October and married in December.
I'm impressed you got that in.
I don't give a shit.
I do.
Go ahead.
It
One
was
more.
impressive. I like mine better because you can actually pick up the ball.
I know, because of your putter like this.
Yeah.
You got that big ring on the back.
Yeah, I do. That's the one that. There we go.
Big.
Oh,
No!
That's
Can't go in and come out.
yeah. That's.
That's
bullshit.
ridiculous. That's
That is
in.
really bullshit.
Okay. What?
So I'm gonna. So 7 years of pursuit.
Yeah.
And you've been married how long?
40.
And what do you? It's 40. No shit.
Yeah, 40.
What do you think the secret of a successful marriage is? Not that I would know. Mine lasted
Not being
about
around
6
each
weeks.
other.
Is that right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, not being around.
And what-
And the other thing is, I always said, when your head hits the pillow, all arguments, all discussions for the day are over. Clean slate the next morning. She says, "I hold grudges." She holds grudges, and I don't. Now the question is, with you,
Yeah.
everybody must know this. Louis was married briefly.
Briefly, yeah. Like,
What's briefly?
From the time I got married in
You were in your mid-20s, like 26 or
26. I was at Yale. My first year, I had got married in October, and we were done in November of next year. Divorced.
something. Wasn't right.
Well, worse than wasn't right. She had I rarely have said that. I've said this only a couple of times. It's in the book.
Yeah, I know the story.
You know
here.
the story.
She had a child.
She had a child, and it's like I should have been on your show.
I know. If I was back then, you would have been.
Yeah, and then
you
we
thought
could have
you were
made
the
some
father.
money.
You thought you might have been the father.
I thought I was told I was the father. Why would anybody make that shit up?
Right.
And then it turned out I wasn't the father.
Yeah, they had a blood test.
We had a blood test before DNA.
Right.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Your show would still be on the air, just digging around. Literally, the chances of knowing at that point were somebody will call in and go, "Yeah, but in the end there'll be 35 things telling you how many," but it was like 18%, 22%.
Was that the kicker? Was that the determination as to whether this marriage would last?
Oh no, I already knew that she decided that she was going to, before I knew that the baby wasn't mine, she had already decided that she wasn't coming back to live at Yale, and she was going to live in Washington. And I went, okay, then ball game's over. Okay, I'm not going to be married.
And how close in the next 50 years were you to getting married?
I'm closer to marrying you. Okay. If you guys made me an offer, you and Connie, I'd be in. Okay, that'll give you an idea how close I am.
You have your friends. That's all you need.
That's all I need.
And you go to your friends, and they have kids, and that's fine with you.
Yeah, exactly.
Your Uncle Louis.
Yeah, and that, but also it's look, I worked in the American theater for 40 years, 20 years. Okay, that was like from the very beginning. I thought I'm the adult in this space. I'm raising these people. These are people who are like 9, 10. They're really in their 30s and 40s and 50s. Some of them.
So those
60s.
are your kids.
Those were my kids, and that was it. I was the adult in the room.
You're the best.
Well, you are.
You're the
It's a
greatest.
pleasure.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
If you've had as much fun as I did, make sure you subscribe to On Par with Maury Povich on YouTube and tap that little bell so you don't miss a thing. And if you like to listen on the go, we're on Apple, Spotify, everywhere you get your podcasts. Hit that follow button. I'll be back with more before you know it. On Par with me, Maury Povich, is brought to you by Mopo Productions, A Better Life Media, and Radley Studios, with executive producers, me, Maury Povich, Holly J. Mirabella, and Christian Thompson. Supervising producer Mike Bernasian, and directed by Mark Leibowitz.